Let me ask you one other thing, because it goes back to broader coverage on TV. And when we talk about requiring trainers and jockeys to participate in media training, would this also be the case? That maybe they realize, as you talk about the social network in the 21st century, that wearing a microphone and a little lipstick camera in their helmet ain't going to break the horse down? I mean, would that also be a way to introduce them and show possibly the danger and the excitement of this sport and how close jockeys have to maneuver and the speed? Would that go with the training of getting along with the media better?
I mean, as a racetrack operator, I would have to say, that sounds great and all, but I mean, is that dangerous? Is it dangerous for a jockey to have a camera on their head if they're gonna?
Not when it weighs 2 ounces. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that all comes to, I'm saying I think all your ideas are great, and maybe some other people are thinking that out here too, but the real fact is, and this is the only thing I have expertise on, nothing else, but the real fact, when you got a 2-ounce camera and you got a clip-on microphone that doesn't weigh that, and you're still having to explain to trainers and jockeys that this is not going to make them overweight for the race or put them in danger, when in the meantime you see what incredible athletes they are to be riding at 35 miles an hour, 6 inches from each other. And I'm 20 years old and I've never seen a horse race. Possibly I say, wow, that is a crazy, exciting, wild X game type of sport after all. It's not just for all of us to sit around and see the standard wide shot oval, so we got our bet down at the OTB. I'm saying, would that go along with trainers and jockeys as well as doing an interview to accept that there's other technological advances that could advance the sport?
It sounds
racetrack owner.
It sounds like a great idea, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a jockey, but you want to make sure they're not distracted for doing their job if you have a microphone on them.
You know what? 1968, they said the same thing. So I'm just asking you, the new generation. I'm not putting you on the spot.
I
I'm
agree
just
with
asking.
1968 then.
Okay, Ian.
Ian Top.
Yeah, they tried that during the Triple Crown. ABC did in the late '90s. They did it for a couple of years with mic'd jockeys and cameras. And I remember the camera was very difficult with all the kickback and moving, jerking around. Can't really see. I'm wondering, maybe doesn't the Breeders' Cup do the gyroscope with video and microphone?
I'm saying,
with
and
the
Chris
field?
knows what I'm saying, I'm talking about consistently, not make it just a special. Anytime the race is on, just like the camera in the catcher's helmet, it's always there. Yeah, you refine stuff. You don't have to show the entire race that way, but you turn and you see what these guys have to go through. And you see Chris turn his head over here and see if anybody's coming up on the rail. You can capture those moments as well. And our technology is much better than ABC's, by the way.
Oh, okay, an unbiased question
Let me ask I'm talking about a jockey. Can I ask the Hall of Famer here?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Okay, question from Charlie Bowden, or comment.
Comment really more than anything, but I think that jockeys in the job they have to do sometimes they may need to focus a little more. A great example being John Velasquez walking to the gate with Life at 10 and the controversy that's caused from one offhand comment on TV.
Well, it gets kind of complicated. I will say this. I might have been the first one to have worn a helmet camera. Craig Schiller, who used to work for ABC and ESPN, I think the man is behind the development of the helmet cam. I breezed a bunch of horses for Ron McAnally at Hollywood Park. It's got to be probably 18 years ago now. I think it's a great shot. It's not necessarily for live, but it's great for replays. And it definitely brings the fans closer to the field, closer to the game, and I think it makes for great theater. The microphone sometimes can get a little tricky. When I was riding Cavalier in the Preakness in 1996, some knucklehead had thrown a Nerf football onto the track. And I went over it. I yelled at Jerry Bailey, "Did you see that bleep, bleep football?" Bleep, bleep. And so it can get a little tricky, but I do think it's technology that has to be incorporated into the sport because it really generates a lot of interest. Another event I had agreed to wear a camera on Touch Gold in the Preakness. And I was wearing a camera earlier in the day, sort of just getting used to it. And unfortunately, when I went to pull my goggles down in the swale stakes that day, they all came down. So the camera, where it was situated, actually got in the way of my goggles. And so I no longer agreed to wear the camera in the Belmont that afternoon. So these are issues that can be resolved, and I think they need to be resolved because I think it makes for a great shot. And I think also with the media training, in 1980, I hired a company called William Morris because I wanted to go after some endorsements. And the only way to get endorsements is to become a household name. And the William Morris agency taught me how to deal with the media. I was going to a black tie affair 3 times a month, and they taught me how to actually stand in front of someone who's being interviewed, or interviewing me, I should say, and answer questions succinctly and thoroughly, and try to project an image that the organization that I'm trying to represent, which is racing, would be proud of. And so I think the media training for jockeys and trainers is an excellent idea. Required, though, forget about it. Encourage. The young man beside you, James, I think you used the word encourage. That's a great idea, and I think it's necessary to make the sport go forward.
Thank you, sir. And is that it? Okay, let's take a vote. You want to require the trainers and jockeys to participate in media training to make them more accessible. What do you think? You don't want you to be like me. I would vote yes if you threw require out. Strongly suggest. Jeffrey, what are you on the fence there too? It's going to be a tough sell. What do you think, Ian? Wow. Our closest vote yet, isn't it? 33 said yes, 30 said no. Squeezed by, just like you were in Florida. All right, marketing and ownership, the final proposal for finding a solution. National licensing of bloodstock agents with penalties for those who are proven to act unethically.
Okay, from the viewpoint of bloodstock agents, I do not think that this is the best solution. I think that a better solution is to have a code of ethics, because when you think of bloodstock agents coming into sales, you're encouraging international buyers to come in, and yet how are you going to license them? Licensing right now requires you to go to the Racing Commission, get fingerprinted, fill out the paperwork, take a picture, and that in turn, it closes the market off to international buyers or any buyers that are traveling in for any quick sales. Instead, TOBA has created a sales integrity program, which includes a code of ethics, and those are adapted by sales companies. They've been adapted by Keeneland, Fasig-Tipton, OBS, Keeneland and Fasig-Tipton in their entirety, and OBS partially so far. And in that, it's an optional, and it's in the Keeneland and the Fasig-Tipton programs themselves. So that way, it is not required to be licensed. However, it is highly encouraged to follow the code of conduct, and those that don't comply are publicly listed online, which further increases bloodstock agents' incentive to comply.
I think from a breeder's point of view, what's important about this point is that we attract owners to the sport by showing that their agents who act on their behalf are acting completely ethically, and I think that will aid in bringing in new owners. They will lose the stigma that is perhaps perceived around the industry of sales. I think in terms of national licensing, it is, I think, quite achievable. It doesn't have to be the same extent of licensing that perhaps a jockey or owner has to go through. A bloodstock agent, you know, it's as much licensing through signing and agreeing to be held to the code of ethics that are laid down by TOBA, but I do feel that as a breeder, the code of ethics should be the punishment for the code of ethics. It shouldn't be held with the sales companies. It should be held with a national body such as the racing commissions, so that there's more just transparency and integrity in that program.